What is up, guys? Welcome to this video. Today we're going to be talking about the Schecter KM6 Mark III Hybrid. Now, I know times are changing and not everybody's really into that whole demo in the mix thing in the beginning of most of these videos. So if you want to skip that, here's a timestamp so you can do that. But for those of you who want to check it out, here it is, and I'll see you guys in a few minutes. So the Schecter KM6 Mark III Hybrid. Now this is just one guitar in a very long lineup of guitars from Keith Merrow and Schecter. I honestly didn't know they had this many guitars available, but if you go on Schecter's website right now, you're gonna see a whole ton of options if you're looking for one of these. Now it starts off with the standard model, which is the more affordable model. From there it goes up to the artist model, and then from there it goes to the Custom Shop, the USA Custom Shop Pro. You obviously have all the left-handed renditions of those guitars, but then you also have a KM7 Stage version of the KM7, which is white. I think it has a bolt-on neck and different pickups. And then we get to the Mark III Hybrid. And we'll get into why they call it a hybrid aside from just marketing, but they do actually have an explanation as to why they call it that. Now, aside from this Telesto gray, you can also get this in white with a maple fretboard, but you can also get it in like a neon green with a Floyd Rose, and it has a Sustainiac pickup thrown into the mix, which I'm not really super into neon green guitars, but I think it's a fun option to have. I'm also not into Floyd Roses, but I think it's pretty cool, and it's just kind of insane how many guitars they actually have that are available. But this one being the Telesto Gray Ebony Fretboard model. Now, why does this one carry the name Hybrid? Well, the reason that it's called a hybrid is because it's taking a bunch of parts off of the Mark II version of the guitar, which is this one. It has the neck from that guitar, the compensated nut, the control layout. It's got the hip shot bridge and locking tuners all from that guitar. And so they gave it the name Hybrid because it's taking stuff from the Mark II, but it's also taking things from the Mark III, and it's putting them all together into one hybrid model guitar. Now, I really gravitated towards this one when I got it, just simply because I'm not a Floyd Rose guy, and I'm really not a 7-string guy. When the Mark IIs came out, I wasn't really super attracted to those guitars. I don't have any problem with Schecter whatsoever. This is not a knock on Schecter. I just wasn't really super attracted to the sort of standard shape that Schecter was putting out for a long time, which I actually own one of those guitars. It's one of my first guitars, and I had it as my only guitar for years and years and years, which is probably why I just don't really want another one, and I didn't want one. So when they came out with this version, the Mark IIIs, these just look insane. And the thing is that these just don't say Schecter to me. They say Keith Merrow. I feel like this has Keith Merrow's identity ingrained into it, and if somebody walks in and says, "What is that guitar in the corner?" I just don't think Schecter at all. I think, oh, that's a Keith Merrow. It's a KM6 Mark III hybrid. It just doesn't say Schecter to me, which, again, not a knock on Schecter, but I think it's an awesome thing because I just love the fact that this guitar carries its own identity. Now, let's get into some of these specs. Now, the one thing that might jump out to you first is going to be the ebony fretboard. Now, the inlays, I don't love inlays. I just don't. If I had the option of getting rid of them, I would. I just love the stealth look of a guitar that has no inlays. It's just a personal preference, but I don't hate these inlays. I think these inlays are pretty cool. The circle inlays that they have, I think they have them across other models, other Schecter guitars. I just think they look pretty cool, the way that they're kind of offset. I think it gives it a pretty classy, clean look. I don't have any problems with it whatsoever. Of course, that's personal taste. The Telesto Gray is awesome. It's a mahogany body with a maple 3-piece neck that's got carbon fiber rods, reinforced with carbon fiber rods. I don't know exactly what that means, but I think we all, for whatever reason nowadays, love carbon fiber included into one thing or another, so it doesn't hurt to have carbon fiber rods in there. I'm sure it's going to help the guitar, and I'm sure it helps the integrity of the neck one way or another. Another thing that I really love about this guitar is the headstock. Now, the headstock is very reminiscent of like a Mayonnaise headstock, which I think is interesting. I'm surprised that they got so close to one of those headstocks, but honestly, I'm not unhappy about it. I love it. I'm not really a fan of the old headstocks like in the Mark IIs. I think the Mark III headstocks look absolutely sick, and it just says metal, and it just looks way more evil than the other headstock, so I'm totally cool with it. Absolutely love it. Now, they say that the neck is an ultra thin C neck. I don't really get ultra thin when I pick it up and play it. It's a comfortable neck. It's a nice neck. I've got the Solar, I've got the Mayonnaise. Those are all relatively in the same ballpark. So maybe relative to other Schecter guitars, this may be an ultra thin. I'm not sure. I haven't played all their lineup in a long time. But it doesn't feel like an ultra thin. It's a thin-ish neck, but it's a very comfortable neck to play, which is honestly something that I prefer. I don't really like it when they go extreme one way or the other. I'm not trying to play a baseball bat, and I'm definitely not looking for a super, super thin neck that's uncomfortable to play on the backside of my hand, if you guys know what I'm talking about. This is somewhere in between. It is thin-ish, but it's not ultra thin, at least not in my opinion. So if you're thinking that it's saying ultra thin is going to yield you this very, very ultra thin, uncomfortable neck to play, I don't personally think that that's the case. Now, for hardware, like I said, the thing making this thing a hybrid is you do have the Hipshot hardtail bridge and locking tuners. Both of them work really, really well. I have no tuning issues whatsoever to speak of. Everything seems to be a quality and working order, so there's no problems there. Now, bringing me down to the electronics, you have one volume knob and a 3-way switch selector. So you get bridge, middle, neck, that's it. Now, getting to the guitar pickups, we all know that Keith Merrow has been in the world of pickups for a long time, and he has been voicing and creating pickups for a long time. I believe he started with Seymour Duncan, then he moved over to Fishman, but it's sort of been his thing in the guitar world before he created the Keith Merrow line of guitars with Schecter. Now, these are specifically made and voiced for this guitar. Now, the thing I don't know, and I also don't know if it matters, is if the pickups were created for the 7-string version and they obviously just condensed them down for the 6-string version, or if these were voiced specifically for the 6-string. Obviously, those are two different styles of playing, unless you're just buying a 6-string to down tune, which I wouldn't understand. I would just get the 7-string at that point. In my opinion, they play absolutely perfect. I have no problems with them whatsoever. I know that he plays a certain style of music, a very dark style of music. He tends to lean more towards that snarl, that 7-string low tuning growl. But I don't get the impression that these are a one-trick pony or that that's all these are made to handle. Now, the one thing that really surprises me with these pickups is their ability to handle clean tones. The middle position and the neck position sound amazing. It's almost like he knew that the options were going to be so much less that he voiced those to almost encompass the best of both worlds. When you're in that middle pickup selector, it's not like a coil split type of a sound, but it just carries this sort of voice to it that has a little bit of that coil split in it somewhere in there. It's hard to say. Obviously, when you're talking about guitar tones, it's so difficult to get words out, but at least that's the impression that I get from it. And of course, the bridge humbucker is insane. It handles the palm mutes, handles all that high-end gain really, really well. I absolutely love it. This guitar is sick. Now, looking at the back of the guitar, you do have this really cool sort of beveled edge here behind the neck. Kind of like a half moon type of a thing. And I think everybody now at this point has something that they call their ability to access the higher frets. Here they call it the Ultra Access, but it does do its job. You can access all of the higher frets just fine. There's nothing really getting in your way at all or making it uncomfortable. I do really love the way it goes from this gray into this kind of flat gray. I think that's a really cool touch. That way the back of the neck doesn't get all smudged up. You just know that it just gets nasty back there when you've been sweating and playing guitar for a while. So I think everybody's just moving to that flat sort of finish so that that doesn't happen. Now, if you look at the back of the headstock, you have the really cool signature from Keith Merrow. Underneath that, you have the model, and then you have the serial number. And of course, back here, you have this little battery slot for the active pickups. Long gone are the days of having to get a screwdriver out, open up that back plate, which I know you guys are all going to know exactly what I'm talking about. If you've had EMGs in the years past, you know that you've always had to take off this back plate here, change your battery, put it in there, somehow hope you don't rip off any of the soldering from all of the electronics and then screw that back on. God forbid you do it wrong, the back plate doesn't want to go back on correctly and you have to do that, but we don't have to do that anymore. We just have this really cool little battery pocket back here so that we can just change the battery quickly. Now that's pretty much it for the specs of this guitar. The reason I went with the Telesto Gray was because I'm a huge car fan. And that Telesto Gray, that Nardo Gray is really much more indicative of a car color. And I loved that about this guitar. This just had car vibes all over it, at least to me. So this was the color that I gravitated towards. But that white with the white pickups and the maple fretboard is also super sick looking if that's something that you guys are into. Now I'm gonna leave you guys with this before we get into the studio room and plug this thing in and get all the raw tones. The thing I really love about this guitar, I'm saying this again, is that it looks like its own thing. It does not look like a Schecter. Again, this is not a knock on Schecter. I just love that it has Keith Merrow's identity in itself. I've been a fan of Keith Merrow for a really long time. That whole, era where Ola Englund and Keith Merrow were both coming up at the same time, making all those amazing videos that we were all watching and aspiring to get to in terms of home production, giving us all kinds of information about amps and guitars and how to record ourselves, all that stuff. I grew up playing guitar in that era of early YouTube, so I've always been a huge fan of Keith Merrow. And this guitar and the Mark III lineup really just says Keith Merrow. It just doesn't say Schecter to me, which I think is an awesome thing. So with that said, let's get into the studio room, let's plug this thing in, and let's check out all of the raw tones. All right guys, so here we are in the studio room with the KM6 Mark III hybrid, and I'm gonna be running just a few different situations. I'm not gonna go too crazy with it, but just wanna make sure you guys have a good idea of how the pickups react to certain different situations. We're gonna start off with high gain. I'm using STL ToneHub, the Mega J2 pack, and which is based on John Petrucci's signature amplifier, and it's gonna be preset number 3, which is a high gain preset. It sounds absolutely sick, but let's start off with that. Let's check this out. Bridge position. Let's get some stereo action here. There we go. Handling high gain really, really well. You get all the chugs out of it. Sounds sick. You have tons of clarity, tons of tone pickup in there, meaning you don't get lost in the palm mutes and the distortion. You can still tell what note I'm holding when I'm playing. So the pickups definitely handle everything well, but they're Fishman Fluence pickups. Why wouldn't they? Especially voiced by Keith Merrow, who is a long time high gain player. I would argue that he probably is going to give these pickups much more of an ability to pick up that crazy high gain because he tunes so low, or he's usually playing on a 7-string, and he is into that darker style of like death metal, where it gets, you know, for a lot of other bands, it gets pretty muddy. If you guys know what I'm talking about, it just gets, after a point, really difficult to even tell what they're playing in the riff. But if you listen to any of Keith Merrow's stuff, it's very clear. He definitely has that high gain thing kind of mastered. Obviously translates into these pickups. Now, I don't necessarily play Keith Merrow type music. I'm not a death metal player at all. My playing style is somewhere stuck between like metalcore, old Metallica riffs, and ripping a bunch of stuff off from like Monuments and Periphery. So whatever you would call that is where I kind of lie. And I love the way that it sounds for that, especially recording. The tone has such teeth on it because of these pickups. It's just... Sounding absolutely sick. And of course, the preset is not hurting the tone at all. Mega J 2-pack preset number 3. I highly recommend you guys check it out. I'll throw some sort of a description down below. I don't know if I'll have a link to it, but it'll definitely let you know what the distortion tone is. But let's go on to more of kind of like a slightly overdriven tone. Not too much gain. I think I got something here. Yeah, here. So this is a little more indicative of what he likes to do in his music. Just give you the representation of that. But I think that sounds pretty cool, but let's jump on something clean and I'll show you what I'm talking about with these pickups. Now, even though they're single voiced pickups, meaning you don't have a split coil, you don't have a coil tap, and you don't have a 3-way tone selected like you would normally get from Fishman Fluence pickups, and you have all these different options with tone, but these still sound really all-encompassing and sound really, really good. me see if I can switch one of these plugins without blowing up my computer. All right, so let's check out some of the clean stuff. You'll see what I'm talking about. All right, so we are going to start with the bridge position. We're gonna move into the middle position, and then we're gonna be in the neck pickup. So let's get started. I'm gonna play a little bit more right now, but if you can hear the way the middle position and the bridge and the neck position handle the cleans, it sounds epic. And it's not, it just doesn't sound like other pickups when you go to these positions. It sounds, like I said, like you get the best of both worlds. You get some sort of a sparkly nature of a coil split, but it's not, right? You still get the full low end, you still get all of that body from the tone. Sounds really good. Got to throw a harmonic in there for added effect. All right, let's go back down to the middle position. Sounds sick. Now, last but not least, let's throw a lead tone on here. And don't kill me over the lead stuff. I'm in DADGAD, so it's kind of a weird tuning for leads because I'm just used to soloing in standard. And when you do DADGAD, you take the bottom two strings and you tune them all out of whack. So I have no clue where scales are, no clue where modes are. So just bear with me. What do we got here? What am I looking for? Lead, 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 need lead. Okay, I'm gonna gain way the F up, midway the F up. Go. All that explanation, I just ended up tuning into standard anyway, but whatever, it is what it is. So absolutely screaming for leads too, no problems there. All right, that's pretty much where I'm gonna end the video. Hopefully you guys have gotten all the information, all of the tone examples that you need to really understand what this guitar is and what it has to offer. I personally love it. I like the simplistic nature of the pickups. The color is insane. Like I said, I'm a huge car guy, so the Telesto Gray, it just spoke to me all day. So I absolutely love the color on the guitar. And yeah, man, it's just an absolute beast. So if you're a huge fan of Keith Merrow, or you're just looking for one of these all-encompassing one-stop shop type of guitars, yeah, I wouldn't wait any longer, man. Just do it. But thank you guys for watching. If you guys enjoy the video, please hit that like and subscribe button, hit that notification bell. I know that I haven't really been putting out any videos in like the past year or so, but I'm really looking to change that right now. I'm gonna be trying to add one video a week onto my channel. So for those of you that have been watching, that have been subscribers for a long time, thank you guys so much for all of your support. And I'm going to start giving back with a lot more of these in-depth guitar videos. All I need to do now is sort of get my hands on some guitars, but I'll figure that out as I go along. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you guys on the next video.